Hello everyone, Kent.Bressler here. I want to welcome you to Kent's Kidney Stories. During our time together over these podcasts, I'd like to discuss kidney disease. I'd like to tell you about my journey as a transplant patient, but also talk about dialysis, kidney donation, and just about anything else that might be of interest. Kent's Kidney Stories, podcast endorsed and sponsored by kidneysolutions.org. Well, hello, it's Kent.Bressler, Kent's Kidney Stories podcast. And I wanted to start this morning, like I usually do, with a prayer. Let me tell you, we need the prayer right now because this is some troubled times. So, dearest Lord Jesus, today is your day, and we want your will to be done. So whatever happens, hold our hands and let us face it together, because we know we do. Amen. Well, this has been a long time coming. I have a really good friend who lives in Florida, who's a kidney recipient, and I'll let her tell her story, but she has been a really close friend and a quick friend, somebody who you make contact with and you know right away you like, you know right away you want to be associated with. She's a very knowledgeable person with a Pharm D. She's a PhD in pharmacology. So she knows her stuff when it comes to drugs. And she works, and she'll explain all this to you. But I wanted to introduce to you this morning Payal Shah. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Kent. Thank you so much for having me on.
You know what? I get the biggest kick. I got this video that comes across with all my pictures on it, constantly running across the screen. And one of the pictures that's on it is you and your mother and I think it was at the global conference, right?
Yep, at the National Patient Meeting, AAKP.
Yeah, the National Patient Meeting. Yeah, that's right. And your mom, she was a delight. How is she doing?
She is great. She's doing really well. I think she was really thankful to be a part of that National Patient Meeting, because it really put into perspective that, and we'll certainly get into this in a little bit, but when we as a family were going through my sickness of kidney failure, you certainly tend to feel very isolated and alone and not sure of who to turn to and the resources. And so bringing her to this meeting was, I think, very settling for her. She found comfort because, she saw the patients, the caregivers, and was able to connect with them to some level and have some kind of unspoken bond. And I think that put her at ease, and for her to see all the momentum that's happening in the nephrology space it excited her and it made her feel really good. So, but she's doing great. She's hanging tight in Arizona, and I tell her and my dad, don't go anywhere, sit tight right now, and don't move. Just don't move.
Yeah, right. Be like me.
Right. Yeah.
And you, yeah. Hey, listen, you sent me some highlights of what you want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And so you wanted to talk about your journey. Remember your first. So why don't we start out with that? Because I think you have an interesting story, and you've been a kidney recipient for a long time with the same kidney, I understand.
That's correct. Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. Sure. So, long story short, well, or I can make it a little long. That's fine.
Yeah, whatever.
So when I was diagnosed with kidney failure, I was 15 years old. Surprisingly, we at that time had no family history. Between both sets of parents, grandparents, cousins, no family history of kidney disease in the family that we were aware of at the time. So really, it came out of nowhere at the age of 15. I was in high school. I was on the dance team. I was very active. And, it just kind of came to the point in the semester that I just wasn't feeling right. Something was not, I was feeling shortness of breath. I was starting to gain a lot of water weight. And at that age, you kind of just say, I'll get over it. I just need some
you've
rest.
never been through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you certainly don't ask yourself, how much am I peeing in a day?
No.
Or it's not a first and foremost question that you ask yourself, definitely at that age. So I let the time go by a little bit. I didn't say anything to my parents right off the bat. I would probably say about a month and a half, 2 months later, as we were coming into the summer break, that's when I started feeling dramatically different for the worse. And I started retaining a lot of water. I could see it in my cheeks, my abdomen. And it got to the point that when I would lay down to go to bed, I could feel the fluid build up in my lungs.
In your lungs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, that scared me. That pretty much prompted me to say something to my parents. And they had noticed that I was being very lethargic, very lazy. And they saw a little bit of weight gain, but nothing that they were on their end very concerned about, I guess. They just thought, typical teenage stuff. She's lazy. She's wants to sleep in. And but it was Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend in May of 1997. And it was my mom's birthday. And I remember getting up at about 5-6 o'clock in the morning, telling my parents that they need to take me to urgent care because something's just not right. Something's not right. So went to urgent care. And they did a whole workup and all that good stuff, took my blood. And that's when they saw that my serum creatinine was just out the roof. And that was the immediate light bulb moment. Hey, we got to dig into this a little bit further. And it was so high that they immediately ruled out any acute injury. So meaning, did I take any ibuprofen in the last X amount of time? Or, was I dehydrated, or was I, so they ruled that out immediately because my serum creat was, I want to say, I can't remember off the bat, but it was well over 4.
Oh, 4. Do you know what mine was at transplant?
What?
17. We'll talk about, 4 is bad at the age of 15.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just, put it in perspective what creatinine means. And how sick you really are. You're tired, you don't care. I was 37 and you're 15, so wow. So did they diagnose you with something? Did they do a biopsy or what?
So at that time, when they took my history, and remember, I'm like in urgent care. So I'm at like an outpatient facility that was just open at the time. And so they said, all right, well, we need to transfer you immediately to a hospital. And so immediately, my aunt, who's a pathologist, she came and met us at the urgent care. She looked over all my reports and she said, yes, I agree. We need to get you to the hospital and start figuring out next steps. So immediately I was transferred over to St. Joseph's Hospital. I was put under the care of a nephrologist. And that's when the whole kind of rigmarole just started from there. They did do a biopsy later on. So what ended up happening was they decided to keep me on high dose steroids for X amount of time to see if I would regain any function. No go. I can't even imagine. I think it was maybe about a month or so that they put me on some high dose steroids.
Yeah. How high a dose were you on of prednisone?
Oh boy. You're asking a good question. I don't remember.
Well, at some point in time during my therapy, which they did the same thing, It's 110 milligrams a day.
I was
And
going
you
to say,
know,
I think I was maybe at 70-ish.
yeah, because your weight and your size, yeah, probably
Yep.
so. At that age. Yeah. Wow.
And that's a hefty dose,
Oh
so,
gosh. And then you really got the moon face, didn't you?
oh my gosh. My parents definitely did not love me with the steroids, not to mention a teenager and then add
Oh,
on the steroids. Oh man, that was a tough period, not only for me, but for my parents as well. So,
the people out here that are listening to this that have kidney disease and have gone through this, or the ones who are thinking that they're going to end up being on high dose steroids, it's the only treatment for certain kidney diseases.
yeah.
That's all we have, right?
Yep, that's right. That's right. And especially when you're in that crucial phase of, do you start dialysis, because we
Right.
don't know if a patient will regain function. So do you initiate dialysis? What's the time frame? Because that's also a measure of outcome, right? So
Right.
are we waiting too late? Are we initiating too early? So that transition from end stage, your stage 5 to dialysis is also a very crucial time period as well.
Yes.
So, there's a lot that goes into, and of course, this was 20 plus odd years ago, so we've definitely
right.
evolved. But these are the things that goes through a practitioner's mind when they're evaluating a patient, for end-stage kidney
Sure.
disease and what to do as far as next steps. So I was on high dose steroids, and they at some point they said, "Hey, she's not going to regain function of her kidney. She's
Right.
basically kaputted out." And in that time frame is when they did a biopsy.
Yes.
It was inconclusive.
Really?
They definitely saw deterioration of the glomeruli. They saw some sclerosis. But as far as coming up with a definitive diagnosis, what, FSGS, IgA, nothing.
FSGS?
Nothing. Nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
But you did have some sclerosis,
Yeah.
some hardening. The kidney was the vessels were hardening.
Yes.
Okay, so give or take, it depends on who's looking at the slide. Anyway, you deteriorate to a point where you were not going to regain any
Correct.
function.
Correct.
Okay.
The thought is that I may have just been born. It could be like a congenital abnormality where I was just born with weak kidneys, and then over time they gave out. Still TBD. Who knows?
Yeah, that's right. And kidney disease is that way. It's different strokes for different folks. I mean, you
Absolutely.
have no clue. Some of it can be, but most of it non-acute is very insidious. It can go on for years. And even at the age of 15, you could have been, if you could look back and you'd been tested, you probably would have seen some protein in your urine or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right?
Okay. And the funny thing is, I had to go annually for my physicals for school and things, and just nothing got caught, which is so surprising, which is so bizarre.
That was 20 some years ago, right?
Yeah.
Mine was 30 some years ago, 40 when I was really actually diagnosed. And not much has progressed in that for FSGS. Let's just put it that way. There aren't drugs or anything, but the key here is that probably if somebody would have been on cue, they would have realized that you had protein in your urine, and right, that protein shouldn't be there.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You were 15, my goodness.
Yeah.
But
well, and I think a lot of that gap comes into play with education of primary care doctors and pediatricians. There's a lot of emphasis with the nephrologist, but as it turns out, by the time patients make any connection to a nephrologist, they're already so well progressed into their disease journey.
Absolutely.
That it's difficult to make any reverse movement, right? So, and that's what we're seeing with currently as it stands. And I'm fortunate to be working in the nephrology field, that you're right. The space has just been stagnant for so long. And how can we be better as a nephrology community to diagnose patients earlier, right?
Right.
And that means getting primary care doctors on board, getting pediatricians on board at the early stage. And, certainly we can talk about this at some point if the time allows, but genetic testing, the role of genetic testing, especially in these rare diseases of CKD, nephrology just isn't there yet. And how can we be better at making that movement happen?
Now, this is part of your current function as a pharmacist, a Pharm D, a doctor of pharmacy.
Yeah.
You're working closely with nephrologists, actually, right?
Yeah. So I'll backtrack a little bit and say I received my transplant in '97.
Yes.
I was 16, so I was only on dialysis for a year, which in the grand scheme of things is not long, and I'm very blessed for that. But I was on hemodialysis for 6 months, and I was on peritoneal dialysis for 6 months.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I much preferred peritoneal dialysis for a slew of reasons, but I was fortunate enough that a family friend matched, and he came forward to donate his kidney to me. So I've been with this transplant now. I'm coming up on 22 years.
22.
Yeah. So,
That's great.
So very blessed, very grateful, and this transplant has allowed me to do a lot in those 22 years, which I'm very, very thankful for. So long story short, I was able to complete high school. I went to college, and I went to pharmacy school, and I graduated from pharmacy school in 2010. I had to go back in my memory bank there. And I've been working as a pharmacist since then. And just 2 years ago, I truly believe in putting things out to the universe and karma and all that good stuff, that I was fortunate enough to land this role that I'm in currently. I'm a medical science liaison for a company that looks at rare diseases that lead to CKD and end-stage kidney disease.
Exactly.
And it's a biopharm company, so we're currently in clinical stage of looking at this particular treatment option. And it's just been wonderful to be able to have a passion project. That's my job. And being able to connect with nephrologists, being able to put a personal spin to it, being able to connect with other patients and advocacy groups has just been, the past 2 years has just certainly been a whirlwind of excitement. And that's how I got to meet you. So,
well, you know what? I think I was just thinking of that. I have a genuine interest in a lot of the drugs that are out there in the market. At some point in time, we're going to come back and talk to you about all of this kind of stuff. But I wanted to say that there's things on the market now that were never, ever there when I started out with this. And in 40 years, now all of a sudden it's an explosion. And you're part of that explosion. And man, are we lucky to have you. Okay. And it's okay if you want to talk about mention your company. It's okay. This is my podcast, and I can do what I want. You want
sure.
to mention, knock yourself out.
So I work for Riata. They are a company based in Dallas, Texas, outside of Dallas, Texas. And I will preface this by saying that the drug is not approved. It has not been approved by the FDA, for safety and efficacy. Right. So keep that in mind. But we are in clinical, we're in a phase 3 trial for ADPKD and also for Alport syndrome, which is a genetic rare disease that leads to end-stage kidney disease, depending on the inheritance pattern. So it depends on how the disease is transmitted down.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, I've just had such an opportunity to be able to connect with nephrologists and really talk about the literature, talk about the data that's coming out, talking about the role of genetic testing so that we can catch these patients early on. If they're showing any hematuria, proteinuria, or if they have a family history, what are we doing to catch these patients early on? And I will say it's really been a conglomeration of patient advocacy groups, the pharmaceutical industry world, and of course, the science folks, having our clinicians on board, the researchers on board. That's really what's driving, to your point, Ken, the discovery of new drugs and treatment options. And I mean, look at the size of our dialysis machines now. When you and I were going through dialysis, it was like this big clunker thing that, well, you never went through dialysis.
No,
you had
I
a
didn't.
preemptive transplant. I just remember.
Yeah, and I'm proud of that, but I really love the people that are on it. I love them to death. But
yes.
Yeah, you're right. Everything that has, if you look back, and I talked about this earlier, you look back historically in kidneys, most kidney diseases, in all honesty, are rare.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't affect a lot of people. I don't know the statistics, not going to say, but that there is a space, like you say, and a need, because those people suffer. They go directly from like you did, from a disease process right into dialysis or transplant. And so by the time they get to a nephrologist, pooey, it's all over with. It's got to be earlier on. It's got to be with that nurse practitioner or with that person figuring it out that this person has the potential, kidney disease. We need to explore it.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's really been the beauty of, this administration put forth the Advancing American Kidney Health Initiative last summer. I think the beautiful part about that initiative is that, we know that there is such a financial burden as far as the healthcare cost of dialysis and what,
yes, ma'am.
what CMS is putting out as far as, the dollar signs on this.
Yes.
So the initiative definitely tackles that, but it's really looking at outcomes. We need to be better at keeping these patients alive. We can do better. And that's what I really appreciate about this initiative and what HHS is doing to put those goals in place, between all the, whether it's the KPMP project or
Kidney X.
Right, Kidney X.
Yeah.
And even looking at organ procurement, how can we be better with organ procurement, and why, let's look into these high discard rates. What's going on? Why can't we use these kidneys? So
Right.
It's really, the initiative has done a nice job of outlining goals that I hope is a good platform for the years to come. So.
Well, I think you're right. Matter of fact, I know you're right, because if he hadn't assigned that, we wouldn't be where we are right now.
Yeah.
There's an explosion. And, people that are like Paul and Richard at AAKP, who've been in the battle this whole time, right? Those two guys have been on the front lines working for kidney patients, as kidney patients, to make this whole process work. Unfortunately, this virus comes along now, so there's been a slowing down of what we want to accomplish. I really want to keep driving. I'm going to live with this virus. We're going to have to live with it somehow. So let's make sure that we're still attacking for kidney disease and kidney patients. That's all I want to do. And I'm so happy to have you on here. It's amazing to me how much you know about the drug world, about the new things that are coming along. And I would like to take some time just to focus on those, like the belatacept and all the research drugs, all of those things at a later date.
Absolutely.
You told me you've been 22 years with your kidney. And I always say, whose kidney is it? Is it mine or is it my brother's? I say it's mine. He says it's his. So anyway, you said you had some kind of tidbits on how to be a successful transplant patient. Can you share a few of those?
Absolutely. So a lot, first and foremost, I will say that I attribute a lot of my post-transplant success to my support system. I think having family, friends, loved ones that have really supported me in the journey has gotten me very far. And I think I would venture to say 51% of my success, to be honest.
Okay.
I've had a great healthcare team, and people have just really advocated for me, rooted for me. When I had initially got my transplant and I was just out of the hospital, those first 6 months when I was living at home, my parents were my warriors, and they made sure that if someone wanted to visit me, you better not even have a sniffle because you're not allowed in the home. Monitoring my diet. My mom put me on a very strict regimen on my diet to make sure that I wasn't compromising the kidney, that I was monitoring my salt intake, even as a post kidney transplant. I think a lot of that just,
have to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just putting me in this, in a role to succeed with my transplant in whatever they could do in their control. So, fast forward 22 years, I think a lot of it has just been really adapting, making it a part of your lifestyle. It's not, do we wish things were different? Yeah, it's not fun taking medications, but you have to do it. And I think being very vigilant about understanding what you're taking, right? Ask questions to your doctor, to your pharmacist. Understand what you're taking. Know what you're taking, the dose. Be your own advocate and understand what are the side effects. Timing. Don't skip doses. And I think making sure you have that schedule in place from get-go is very important, because we know that these are essentially our lifeline drugs. So we don't want to risk any episode of rejection or any longstanding rejection just because we've decided not to take our medications. So diet and exercise, I can't emphasize it. Fruit, veggies, things that provide a lot of antioxidants. I think that goes a long way in kidney health. So maintaining weight, doing moderate exercise, so keeping active to the best of your ability is very important. And again, just be your own advocate. Going to the right people, surrounding yourself by people that will lift you up is going to be very important.
Those are all good tidbits. They're absolutely positively have tos. I call them have tos.
Yeah.
All of those
non-negotiable.
Yeah, they're not, oh, maybe I will. They're have tos. If you can't do them, please don't just stop doing them. Ask somebody for help. If you feel like you don't get it, you feel so much better and you want to quit your medicines, come on. You're gonna progress very quickly to renal failure if you stop taking those medicines. That's it.
Yeah. And on that note, I do want to say, with everything that's going on right now with the virus, that of course we know, being immunocompromised, we certainly are in a very fragile part of the situation. And so we have to monitor ourselves and be very vigilant. That being said, I do want to let the kidney community know, especially transplant patients, that don't compromise your medications. Do not skip a dose. Do not take half a dose, to make your drugs last longer or in hopes of boosting your immune system. Do not do that. Everything needs to go through your nephrologist first. If you're concerned about running out of medications, talk to your insurance company, talk to your pharmacy. They will provide an override for this current time that we're in to allow patients to have enough of chronic medications on hand. So certainly, do not feel that you are stuck. there is a way to get some answers, and I'm more than happy to help with that, to make sure that we're talking to the right people so that you're not compromising your medications during this time.
We're open at Kidney Solutions, and myself, I'm open for emails or phone calls. People have my number. They can get it from kidneysolutions.org, and I can intercede. People, there are ways, you just said, there are ways to make sure you have enough medicines. It is possible. And you're a knowledgeable person. I don't want to bombard you with it, but I would be actually available to help that. I've done that. You told me about it. I've contacted my pharmacy, and they tell me not to worry. We will supply you your medication. Okay.
Yeah.
But don't go out on your own. You said it. Don't do half doses. Don't do missed doses or once a day instead of twice a day. You know, if you're having trouble, get a hold of us. We'll help you with it. Be happy to help you with it. Okay, that's what we're here for. And you know what? I want to have you back. I really want you to come back, and we'll do it soon. And we'll talk about it a little bit before. I just want to thank you for coming on. You've been a wealth of information, and we need to tap you more, because you know as well as I do, kidney patients take care of kidney patients. All right, regardless what stage you're in, doesn't make any difference. Dialysis, pre-transplant, post-transplant, we stick together. And when we have a knowledgeable expert like you on board, we're going to tap you. All right.
Absolutely.
It's something that you want to do. And so we're going to give you a platform to do it. And keep working with people like AAKP or whoever you're working with. You're too valuable right now at your stage. One of the things we can talk about is longevity. We'll do that at some point in time, and how important it is to take care of yourself and how to do that. And so we can talk about a bunch of things. And so at this point, I just want to tell you thank you. You don't know how much it meant to me to have you on. And I know Jason, he's just banging, shaking his head. Yeah, we really enjoyed it, and we're going to do it again.
Absolutely. And thank you for what you do for the community, and, you know, to get a podcast like this up and running and to reach our community. It's so important, and to let people know that you're not in it alone. And we certainly are all here together to support each other. So you're doing great steps for that.
Well said. And I just want to thank you. Listen, folks, I don't know who's listening. I don't know how many of you are listening. But if you are, and you can tell people about this, this was one of the most important podcasts that I've been involved in since we began this. So please get it out there to people. People need to hear this information. And we'll do more. We're going to do more. And remember, like I've said before, if you have questions, you need to call. If you don't call us, call somebody. Don't keep it to yourself. Be in charge of your care. That's the most important thing you can do for yourself and for your loved ones. Stick around for your loved ones. If you don't want to stick around for yourself, at least stick around for your loved ones. All right. Now, stay safe. Number one, pay attention. CDC. Go on that website at cdc.org or .gov and learn about this virus and take care of yourself. And in the meantime, keep breathing.